would have retained them and engaged them in healthy behavior. We're going, what we practice and what science knows and has shown again and again are two entirely different things. You know that coaches take over a team. They take over from a coach who might have failed. They then start beating the hell out of everybody, focusing on everybody, changing the whole team structure. Now, how those coaches approach this, and I've again dealt with this in my various iterations of my book, is vitally important because, again, there is autonomy. And secondly, there is mastery. And part of autonomy is obviously to drive your life in the direction you want to, in doing what's important to you, what's vitally cherished, emotionally driven by you. And if the coach doesn't get that about you, then the coach is just telling you to do stuff which is important to the coach and not to you. Second of all, once you've established for yourself and for the coach what is vitally important to you in going forward, you need to get better and better at doing that, and the coach has to do that. The coach might have a belief system passed on by the CEO and the board, but the coach has to inspire trust, as does any personal trainer or physical therapist. You have to inspire trust, which means helping the person maintain their autonomy, get better and better at doing what's important to them, whether that's moving or walking or talking or using their leg or playing better footy. And finally, you have to establish a sense of purpose where you, as a coach, and the client are perfectly aligned to the person's purpose, to your client's purpose, to your patient's purpose, because those three issues are vital. I know what's important to me. I know what I want. I want to get better and better at being what is important to me. And finally, I need to have a purpose that I share with the coach and the team. And that is about trust, not belief. That is about the trust that the coach has to build up through asking, through engagement, and through finding out uniquely what is each driver for each member of the team, so that that can be aligned with the goal, with the global purpose of the team at that time of their lives. All of that takes a lot of skill.
I recall a story that you told about a number of dolphins that were captive and were trained by various people. Would you mind sharing that with us?
Sure. Yeah, Margaret Mead, the great anthropologist, was married to a man called Gregory Bateson, who was a great change theorist and a systems theorist and ecosystemic theorist. And he had a look at dolphins, and he was very interested because he discovered that dolphins fundamentally, when they perform in a dolphin circus, they carry out behaviors which dolphins carry out in the wild all the time. They simply do it on command. What the trainer has to do is get the dolphin to do behaviors that are completely unique, which is, again, change management. And he discovered that you could do this with dolphins through carrots and sticks, in other words, through rewards and punishment. But it was very interesting, and the dolphins often began to display psychotic, schizophrenic-like behavior. They would swim in endless circles, bump their heads against walls. They wouldn't swim. They would attack other dolphins. They wouldn't rest or sleep. And very often they died from stress. On autopsy, they clearly died of stress. High cortisol levels, mindless. And then he found there were some trainers who didn't have that problem. But the difference was the warm and supportive relationship existed between those coaches and those dolphins who willingly took on new behaviors without feeling stressed. As far as intelligent agrarian mammals are concerned, dolphins are just like us. Now, there is an interesting phenomenon in human beings called homophily. We like people who are the same as us. And there is no better way. And I'll give you an example. In the gym, we'll go and we'll take people and we'll give them a Viper, a power plate. We will work them on kettlebells and sandbells and TRX. But that, in fact, is an expert relationship imposed on a client. And the way we can then become the dolphin trainer is we can break up the training into 4 separate elements during that hour, and every 15 minutes we take a ball and we do catch and pass. Catch and pass is playful. Catch and pass is between equals. There is nobody guiding how the game goes. You throw the ball, they throw it back. And this liberates the relationship very subtly in a ritual, which then says we're equals. For 15 minutes I'm telling you what to do, and I'm shredding you and trashing you and doing all those terrible things, those terrible words people use. But then we just simply go and play and we're equals. So that complementary relationship is suddenly dealt with by fun, by catch and pass. And fun allows us to normalize a relationship as being one between equals, where we can chat and we can throw the ball and we can behave as a team for once in that hour. And that's the lesson from dolphins. People will change under the influence of a warm relationship, but it is client-centered and client-directed. It's not about your expertise and about your reputation and about your ability as a coach or a PT or a physical trainer. It really, really is about the warmth of the relationship and liking matters. Think about it. We just keep on bleeding more equipment and more expertise into these relationships. But at the end of the day, people stop coming. At the end of the day, with the big groups, 3 out of 4 of their clients are failed clients who actually stop coming within the first 12 weeks generally. And under the usual way of having yearly contracts, which are hard to break, you may make money, but people drop out and you don't engage. And unfortunately, we see it in gyms closing all the time. And the big challenge to the big gyms is the small gyms. And of course, the 24-hour gym where there are no trainers, where in fact you sign up by talking to an iPad. And one of my friends, Mark Smith, has just bought Lifetime, the Anytime gyms worldwide from New York. And where's the role for the personal trainer?
It's, I guess it just distances us more from any sort of social interaction, and certainly any meaningful social interaction.
Certainly. And what it does say to us is, as a personal trainer or coach, you have to take responsibility for the clients leaving. Even if it isn't directly your fault, even if you didn't create a warm relationship, even if you did create a warm relationship, if you take ownership and you say, it's me, I'm doing it, at least you have a sense of control and you know that you should be doing something to address those issues.
Yes.
If you just say, well, it's the client and they're difficult and people don't want to pay and people don't want to put in the hard work and the hard yakka, unfortunately, you're neglecting the fact that it's inherent in an adversarial relationship that people lose their goals, lose their drive to carry on because you're violating their sense that what they do makes a difference. I mean, how many of us ever go to a client before a gym session where we planned out 42 programs for them and say to them, what did you love the most last week? What was not so good? And if you had to train your perfect day, what would you want to work with? Because I can tell you, for me, it's not crawling up and down. It's not doing bench press. It's TRX, it's Vipers, and it's the power plate. And you can shove the rest of the sandbells and the Indian, clubs. And particularly this crawling around stuff and doing these head-down push-ups and all of this crap. There is so much I don't like. Running in between these cones, doing all kinds. There is a lot I don't like, which I understand is good for me, and I understand is part of a balanced program. But guess what? Yes, I do have favorites, and the things which I regard as fun. Rowing on the TRX for me is recovery. It's not an exercise.
So, and that's another catchphrase that I've heard you use before is the provoke versus evoke concept.
Well, much of the direction we'll give to clients is provocative. We're trying to push them into compliance, which is an old model that says, I'm the expert and I know what's good for you, which is why you've come to me. Which on the face of it, on that first level, would appear to be correct. But in reality, we are demotivated by that for the reasons I've mentioned. On the other hand, if I am curious about you, within the context of a warm relationship in which I feel understood, in which I feel my needs will be met, in which I feel that I can engage with my own resolve to change, and I feel a sense that what I'm about to do is different and will make a difference, then what the trainer is doing is evoking in me my resolve to change. It is overcoming my history of failure, to lose weight, to get strong, to stick with it. And good coaches do not provoke. They evoke the argument for change from the client. If, as a client, I make the argument for why I want to do these exercises, for why I want to be here for 3 hours a week, it will carry over into the 165 hours a week when I'm not in the gym. Because if you train me hard and the next few days I was sore, I am beginning to rehearse the arguments in my head for why I don't want to go ahead and do this. I've got 165 hours a week versus the 3 hours in which I can rehearse the arguments for why I don't want to go, because I haven't got time, because I need to work, because I can't afford it. But if I had evoked in me by an empathic trainer who dealt with my emotional drivers as to why I wanted to do this, and I give many examples in my books, then I have heard the argument from my own mouth, I've listened to my own words, and I'm the expert in how I go forward from there. And when the coach acknowledges that I'm the expert in how I have succeeded and how I have failed in my life, then we're talking self-efficacy, because I drive the process from here on, and it is client-directed, and I will succeed. Not only that, I will love what I'm doing, and I will love the coach who is facilitating me enjoying myself. Walt Disney made that decision years ago. How do we get people to enjoy being themselves, even though they're adults? We get them into Disneyland, into Disney World, into Epcot Center, where they can encounter themselves in the best possible light. And that's motivation.
Listening